For those that haven't had a chance to join us on Facebook Live before with NCSA, my name is Jamie Dufek, and I am one of our directors of softball at NCSA, and I'm really pumped to have a special guest on today, Danielle Lawrie. I am having a total fangirl moment just because I went out on a whim and reached out to you through social media to jump on, Facebook Live with us, just because I think you're so influential in the softball space and really, just sports in general. So really excited to have you on today. We're going to kind of have this theme of talking through and kind of overcoming adversity. Those that don't follow Danielle on social media, her Instagram page is awesome and constantly posting things about workouts. You're just staying tough. So I've got a lot of great things that we can cover today. But welcome, Danielle. Excited to have
you.
For those that maybe don't know a lot about your story, I thought maybe you could kind of kick us off a little bit and share a little bit about your background, coming from Canada, going to play at Washington, being a phenom and still, a legend in the space. And then, of course, still playing, with Team Canada. Would love to know a little bit more about kind of your, backstory, if you're willing to share.
I would love to. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. This is great. I think anytime you get to just talk your story or just speak the truth, it's an opportunity for other people to learn from it. So I'm stoked to be here. I appreciate it. My story is not anything too crazy. It's just a hardworking little girl that had some pretty big goals, but to say that I knew the scholarship opportunities were there, I didn't. I started out playing baseball and switched over to softball when I was 10. Had got cut from this little league guys all-star team and was devastated. And I remember sitting down with my dad and him just saying, life's tough. And this is just a situation where you're playing in a sport that unfortunately doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity for women playing baseball. It just doesn't. And my dad saw that, and that might be harsh to say to a 10-year-old, I'm sorry, but baseball is not really something that you can pursue for the rest of your life. But I respect the crap out of him for that, because it opened my eyes to being able to go into a sport in softball and start to just generate this love for it. And I went into it. I didn't start pitching right away. I did like the slingshot, the half slingshot that they used to do. And that's how we learned how to pitch back in the day. I did. And
that's how I started and didn't go very far with it either. So.
I know. It's really awkward. But I learned to love it. I started to get better and better. And I had a lot of people that helped me. My pitching coach, Rick Sullivan, from back in the day with the Renegades, was amazing and took me under his wing. And, I was so lucky I got to play a lot of sports. I played basketball, volleyball, soccer, track, softball. Didn't have high school softball, which I really think was a blessing, because the pressure that's put on these young women these days to not only have to pursue one sport, but literally put everything into that, every dime their parents own, as far as, lifting, conditioning, speed work, training, lessons. Playing other sports allowed for me to love softball and that love grow more. And I was super competitive in basketball and could have got a scholarship for basketball. And I loved it. I was tested in so many different ways. Fitness wise, basketball, you got to think a lot different. So I just think it helped the love of the game grow for me with this sport, because I realized that I was good enough. I started out with the junior national team at 15. And that's when it kind of opened up the door for the recruiting process for me, because we didn't have ESPN in Canada, and we still don't, which is a drag. But little girls don't get the opportunity to watch and see the Women's College World Series and regionals and supers. I'd been down to UW to watch games occasionally, but I didn't know in the back of my mind that that's something that I was going to do. And when I started out at 15 with the junior national team, and coaches started to kind of say, oh, she's actually pretty good, I think that's when I realized, why not me? And I was pretty highly recruited from UW, Alabama, Nebraska, and those were my top three. And at the end of the day, I made that commitment. I wanted to go to UW. My parents lived an hour 40 away. I wanted them to be able to watch me. And that's kind of where that story goes. And I continued to play in the MPF for a couple of years, as well as overseas in Japan, which was by far the coolest experience, I think, of my life, playing this game, aside from the national championship year. But I've been through so many things. The '08 Olympics, had a lot of ups and downs. And it's crazy to think that, which I thought was going to be 12 years later, it will be 13 years later that I might get another kick at the can at this thing. And for that, I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah. And I don't know if many people know this, and I was really interested by this because I grew up with a younger brother who actually played baseball and then went on to go play college soccer or college baseball. And, I played college Division I softball. But what was it like growing up in a competitive household? Because I mean, I know you're
Yeah,
uber competitive person. So I can
very.
imagine, your brother in his MLB, experience. What was kind of that
Mhm.
like growing up in high school?
I'm not the same person I am now without that upbringing and without that competitive just nature at all times. I mean, we had each other's back and we competed hard and we loved hard. And, on those days where we would get home from school and my dad would get home from work and we'd go down to the track that was about 15 minutes away, and we would train and run and take ground balls and all those types of things. Like, we did that all the time. It was all we knew. But on the days when it was tough or my brother was struggling, yeah, I love to make fun of him a little bit because he does bother me at times and did. But like, at the end of the day, we were there grinding together and we were doing it and we were working hard and getting better. And the 3 year age difference made a little bit of an impact back in the day, because we started training when Brett was 6.
Yeah.
When I was 9, we were going, and it was a consistent thing. But if you don't have a sibling that pushes you, I think it sometimes can be a little bit more difficult, because it wasn't only the training, it was we would do it when we're washing the dishes or when we're setting the table or when we're downstairs and we're watching a show, who could guess the most things. It just turned into like, literally, this is how we go about our life. I'm not the
Yeah.
same without him.
It's so funny that you say that. My experience with my younger brother is very similar. We had two very different recruiting tracks in past, but I think you bring up something really interesting, as far as having that companionship and especially for those now, that are kind of stuck inside, it's very
Mhm.
interesting to kind of have that back and forth option, right? To push each other and kind of have that accountability, and such. So very funny
Yeah.
to say that. I was listening to I think a different podcast that you had done, and you were talking about it, and I'm like, man, kind of sounds a lot, like my own family experience. So it's pretty crazy to
Yeah.
hear. But I would love to have you kind of look back at your, younger self and think back to some, experiences or some challenges or, some setbacks either in high school or in college. And now, that you're older, you've been playing for many years. What would you tell your younger self? What kind of advice, would you say, or, would you have handled one of those situations differently? I'd love to maybe have you touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, when I think about my upbringing as far as travel ball and when we played, I guess what would be high school days, I
Mhm.
didn't really go through like a lot of struggle on that department. And that's not to say that that wasn't coming, because it was. And I really think about a pivotal moment for me, which was the '08 Olympics. I struggled a lot. I struggled with not only I'm going to take the whole year off of school and being gone from everything I'd only known, right? Like my family, UW was now my family, and I literally had to leave. And it almost felt like when you're in college, college is the family piece.
Yeah.
And when I was with the national team, that was work. And I was really young. I turned 21 in April, just before the Olympics, which were in July, and I was young, and I battled and butted heads with a lot of people on that team, because number one, I was hard nosed, and yes, I was a talented kid, but it was never a question of me working hard, because that's always something that's been instilled in me at a young age. But I just wish that I was better at being able to have those hard conversations, or if people had issues with me or they didn't like what I was doing, my instant thing would to just be like, get super defensive and super upset and be like, well, why am I going to want to work hard for you? Why am I going to want to do this if everything I do is wrong? And I struggled with that at 21 years old, when I had women on the team that were 26, 27, 28, and a couple that are in their 30s. Me coming onto that team at that age and making an impact like I did with a lot of other young ones, like, we were a threat. And I don't think we had the good team dynamic to deal with it, which is really unfortunate. So my thing was always like, it's the young against the old. And it was a crap dynamic. And I wish that the age that I'm at now, like, I would address anything head on. Like, let's legit have a conversation about it, because I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I think that was the hardest part for me, was crying multiple times throughout that year, being like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Number one, why don't we have leaders on this team that can definitely have the hard conversations, but make me feel okay, make me feel like, hey, like I know you can make an impact on this team, put your arm around me, tell me what I need to do better, but also tell me what I'm doing that's good. And on the flip side, I wish that I was a better teammate. I wish that I definitely could have had conversations with people that I was uncomfortable with and said, my goal is to help this team win a medal, whatever you need from me. And I didn't have it in me back in the day because I would have that attitude with them. Everyone's against me. And I wish that I could have had the attitude now.
It's such an interesting point that you make too. And I think, it really applies to the real world and life in general. No one really truly enjoys having those tough conversations, and it's not easy. And especially nowadays where we have the ability to hide behind a computer or a phone screen, it makes it even more challenging. But one thing that really stood out to me that I would love for you to touch on is, the value of having a great teammate. You've played with some awesome people along the road, and, are still playing with some awesome, teammates on Team Canada. Looking at it, what makes a good teammate? I mean, what are some qualities that you truly feel make a good teammate? I think that's probably something that my younger self, might ask myself too. So I'm dying to know.
Yeah, there's 3 women on this team that I went to the Olympics with 12 years ago. Lauren Bay, she's got a couple kids. She has 3. And I'm really, really close with Kaylee Rafter, who finished her career up at FSU, and then Jen Salling, who we won a national championship together. And I think about those 2 and what they bring as far as the teammate aspect. And it's just accountability like no other. Like I know when I think of like great teammates, you don't always got to like everyone. You just don't. That's the reality. Chicks don't like everyone, and I'm okay with that, right? But at the end of the day,
happens.
Yeah, the common goal of what you're trying to do as a group, if someone's taking away from that, that's the problem in my eyes, right? So it's like, I feel like when we have such a strong team, you have those leaders, those older vets that like have really done their due diligence and time, but have also evolved as people and understand that like, just because I'm older, that means nothing. I have to put in the work just as hard as you do, if not harder, because it's harder on my body. It's more strain on my body. And I just think about them being able to not only be your friend, but be super honest with you. The types of friends that you have that even if you're in the wrong as a human being, if your friends are telling you that you're right to make you feel better, you got issues. You have to have people that hold you to that higher standard and push you and make you feel uncomfortable. And when I think of some of my best teammates, that's why I'm so happy to be back in this situation with these women again, because Jen, I know, has my back till the end. Rafter behind the dish, I've never thrown anyone better than her. I had like just that trust and love that we have for the game and the work that we put in. There's no one better. And they're a huge reason as to why I grind the way I do, because I want to win for those players. I want to win for our team, but we're also the example. And I feel like the harder you work and the higher standard you set, it only raises the bar and allows everyone else to understand I got to work harder. So
everyone's having one goal, and that's, a big mantra of ours at NCSA is, one goal and in keeping the momentum going. So really great points, that you bring up across the board. I'd love to kind of transition and talk a little bit about, you staying self-motivated. For those, that I talked to a few minutes before that don't follow you already on Instagram, do it. She's so motivational in so many different areas, especially during some of these unknowns in these trying times right now. But we have a ton of athletes that are, either have lost their seasons or don't know, what the summer kind of entails for them. So what advice, do you have in ways that they could stay self-motivated and stay, at the top of their game? Just obviously because you're, still playing through all of this as well too.
Yeah. I think this is a really unique situation right now. And I mean, my heart goes out to everyone that's affected by it. Not only, the Olympics being postponed, families that have lost loved ones, high school seasons that have been canceled, eligibility lost on all levels. That's gut-wrenching, and that's what makes this really difficult. But what I continue to keep saying to people is that the world's really cruel. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the situation that we are in. No one looks at my situation with my kids and says, oh, poor Danielle, she has to train another year and she has to find childcare and this and that. And it's like, I could have looked at this situation like that. And I gave myself 24 hours. Once I got the text message from my coach that Canada was pulling out of the Olympics, to the 10-minute period to where it was put on social media, to the 5-minute period that my phone was blown up. And the last time it was like that was when I gave birth to both my girls. It was insane. And in that moment, like I didn't respond back to anybody or to do anything. I need to process this, because right now it's automatically poor me. I'm pissed. And it's okay to feel that way. Your feelings should be validated. But if you give them more time than they deserve, you're going to sit in self-pity and then find a way to not continue to get better. Now, when you talk about motivation and self-motivation, I mean, you can't all of a sudden just get it in this period of time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that for me, I'm very lucky. I learned at a young age where it's like, it doesn't matter if it's softball or basketball, or if I'm sitting down doing my homework, or if I'm vacuuming the downstairs. I'm not going to go do a half job, because I remember doing half jobs and getting in a lot of trouble from my mom and dad. Because it's like, what's the point of doing something? And I struggle with my daughter, clean your room. I'd ask her 10 times to do this or that or pick this up, and
it all gets shoved in the closet.
It does. And it's like I have to sit her down and I'm like, Maddie, what's the point of doing something if you're not going to intentionally do it the right way? And she'll be like, I know, but I tried. I'm like, well, you got to try harder. You have to put a better effort. And that's just for everything in your life. Learning that at a young age has allowed for me during this time to not feel sorry for myself. How can I come out of this with a bigger vision? Not only to obviously help a team win a medal, but like our family, how can we personally come out of this more positive, loving on each other more, appreciating this time? And this is the last, I can't even remember the last time in 3 years where all I focus on is my family and my fitness. It's either like I come home, I'm juggling being home while the national team's together, still trying to do my ESPN prep for when I'm in broadcast season. So sometimes I'm half in, half out with seeing my kids. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time I honestly feel really, really lucky to obviously have healthy family and be in this situation and feel like positive about it. Because the last thing that I felt like I could do was come out of it or be a bad example every day for my little kids, or seeing me wake up being mad at the world because of this. And shame on me. That would be really, really bad. And I knew that. And these kids have really helped me get through this.
I think it's an interesting point too, where, we've been kind of given this gift, right? Where a lot of us are able to spend more time with our families, or, the kids that would be, in their conference play right now and, transitioning through, their season. We've been given this opportunity to kind of slow down, and take a moment. Yeah. But I'm curious on what kind of feedback or, any type of tips that you have for athletes that are maybe, seniors or juniors in high school right now and are kind of dealing with that unsettling feeling of, is there still going to be a position for me? We don't know what roster sizes are going to look like. I've been working so hard, is it worth it? Is a question that I'm constantly getting. So I definitely think that's something, that these girls and guys, are going to have to overcome. So any tips or advice for some of those that might be struggling?
I look at the hard work as not only, yes, a stepping stone to get me to where I needed to go collegiately, but it's for my everyday life. And that's how you need to look at it. I understand that we sacrifice time and not as much time with our friends, or back in the day, you don't get to go to all these parties you want to go to and do all those things. But the greater sacrifice for that was obviously you want to get to college and get that scholarship. And if you don't, it is what it is. There's still a lot of opportunity for it. But it's like, I worked my tail off because I loved this stuff in the middle, right? I love that grind. I love that hard work, because I truly believe that that's how you have to look at life. Like, you can't just always reap the rewards, because if you're constantly hating the hard stuff, you haven't respected it enough to deserve that outcome. And this situation right now, it's like, a lot of people can sit back with this unknown of like, man, I don't know. Will I get this roster spot? Will I get an opportunity to play in college with now this new eligibility stuff? Nobody knows. What you can control is the work that you're continuing to put in, because at the end of the day, the work ethic, the performance, and being just a good human being plays a huge part into those opportunities working themselves out. So you do yourself a disservice to work as hard as you did to get to this point with the unknown there and say, well, I don't know if I'm going to get that. I don't know if I should put in the work. Shame on you. Why'd you do all the work before this? Yeah. And that comes down to self-motivation, right? It comes down to you wake up every day, and you don't go to run a marathon every day or go do something magnificent. But if you can wake up with the intention of being motivated for something small, something that gets you up out of bed, something that just makes you go like, nice, like I'm looking forward to that, it allows for you to continue to just keep going like, nice, like I feel better after that. Those little mini goals. Because if you continue to let yourself just like say, oh no, I'm good, I don't need to do it, I don't need to do it, you're just making those excuses, and it'll pile and pile and pile, and you'll sit in self-pity. So that's the number one thing I can't stand.
How do you go about kind of, setting up your week or setting up your day? I mean, I know you've talked in the past about having an agenda, right? And, staying on track with things, but especially now more than ever, with you being home consistently, how do you go about planning your day? I mean, how do you get your workouts in? What does kind of that mentality look like?
Yeah. We're really lucky we have a legit gym. I mean, I feel for the people that don't have that.
You are about to, I watch you and I am about to buy a Peloton in like the next week. So it's game
changer. It is. But it's like, I also know that fitness rules my life and I love it. And I challenge myself because that makes me a better person every day. Like when I choose that, not everyone has to be that way. I don't love running, but I know it's hard and I push myself when I do it. So when I finish, I'm just like, hell yeah, dude, I did that. And whether or not it's working towards trying to go to an Olympics or you're just trying to strive to feel better throughout the day. And when it comes to routines for the day, I mean, it does consume around my children and timing up, trying to help Maddie with her school. And, I've been doing these Zoom calls, so I've been fitting that time in, but like my workout's mandatory and my kids know that. And it's ingrained in them to know that when mom's in the garage, like, she's going balls to the wall. And if we come in and we're watching, we can't nag. Like they know as soon as they open the door, it better be like they're calling 911. Because if you're coming in and disrupting my time and I give you my time all day and you're coming in because you're mad that you don't get this, they know. So I just think it's about that and just saying like, carve yourself out that time. Whether, we're lucky to be doing some mandatory Team Canada workouts right now. So we do some mandatory strength and some mandatory running stuff. But even if I wasn't doing that, I do something every single day. Like whether it's, I'll go on the bike, whether I do a 45-minute run and I include like a HIIT workout, or I do lifting, because there's nothing better than being a woman and being strong and working towards that and just pushing yourself to that unknown. But dude, you gotta find the time. And if you do not find the time, you're making an excuse.
And I think you've done just such a great job with your two little ones too. As far as teaching them early on, I've seen on Instagram, Maddie jumping on the Peloton tread, and doing a crazy workout with you. And, I know we probably have some parents listening in. So how did you get the girls involved in that? I mean, I know it wasn't, dragging Maddie by her saying, hey, we're going for a run. She seems intrinsically motivated as well too. So what age did you kind of instill that in them or kind of start teaching both of them that?
When I went back to play, it was the summer of 2017 was when I made the choice to talk to the national team coach to go to the tryout for January 2018. And Madison was 3 and Audrey was 9 months. And yes, it was hard because they were really little. But I remember the coach at the time when we had that conversation, not only bringing up stuff from the past about like, well, the teammate you were in the past might affect what you bring to the table this time. And it was also kind of that conversation of like, I don't even know if you still can compete. Yeah. Right? How long has it been? And holy, excuse my French. When someone's going to tell me that, okay, I mean, trust me, I get motivated by all different things. But when someone's going to question my ability or my sacrifices, meaning like if I'm making this choice to come back to this team, it doesn't mean I'm going to be the Danielle Lawrie that I used to be, because I'll never be what I used to be. And I knew that. And we're always evolving. But I would never put myself in a position to come back as a mediocre player to just, oh yeah, here I am. Like if I'm making that sacrifice, it is to push myself into this unknown, to work as hard as I possibly can, to balance my life and sacrifice my time. And I really believe that Madison saw me at that age putting in the work. I would bring her to my bullpens. They still come to my bullpens and they see me. I put my headphones in. They see me work. They see me do stuff in the garage. And then it just started to get into that timing of when Maddie was about 4.5, 5, where she's like, hey, can I come and do like a run with you? And she hates it. She's like me. Like, there's nothing worse. I have this love-hate between putting in the hard work and the self-doubt in those moments. But you finish and you're just like, hell yes. So we'll do it together. And she'll be crying and like Instagram messages I got when I would post her bawling. And it's like, guys, do you think I forced my 4-year-old to come run with me? She loves it. But what I'm teaching her is we don't do it to give up. I'm not saying that you need to go and finish this at 150%, but if your little butt's going to walk and you're going to give up, we have a problem. Literally jog as slow as you can and just finish. Because the importance for me of her understanding to finish through the line or to do something that she 100% committed to, even if it doesn't mean she's doing it to the best of her ability, but she's finishing, she's learning. And to me, that is the biggest life lesson that I can teach them. And the beauty of me being back in this game is them seeing me work, appreciate the work, and know that the bar is up here. And if we're going to continue to, as a family, they're going to see me do this. But when I'm done, like the expectation is never going to change for what I expect, whether she plays softball or she doesn't. I'm completely okay with whatever.
I think it's so great that you're just teaching them at an early age and that they have, you know, respect, obviously, you know, for whatever sport they choose. You know, I've heard you talk before. They're, you know, probably not going to play one sport. They may play multiple sports. I think it's just so important now, you know, nowadays that we teach, you know, the youth at a young age so that they can be prepared, you know, to overcome all of these challenges and these situations. And I have no doubt, you know, that she's going to be much stronger, you know, because she's got a mom like you that's, you know, taught her early on. But
thank you.
Before we jump into some questions, I do want to acknowledge the fact that you've been doing these Zoom calls with not only travel coaches and teams, but now some college teams. So I would love to know kind of where that idea stemmed from, kind of themes and trends that you're seeing in talking with some of these teams. For those that maybe aren't aware what Danielle's doing, she's doing a great job of trying to raise awareness and funds for, you know, charity. One of them, I believe, is actually for the I forget the actual one because we don't have it in Chicago, but it's, I've got it written down. Hunger Not Impossible, right?
Yes, yes.
So can you shed some light on kind of what you're across the board?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, we were on a Zoom call. It was just me and Rafter and Jen and Vic Hayward, and we're just kind of like just hanging out. And we talked about just those little things, you know, because we saw Package Deal and what they're doing. And it just kind of hit me when we were just talking about all of that. I was like, man, it would be really cool to give back to the sport. And listen, I don't need money. Like, it's not like I wanted to do this with the intent of needing money. Yeah, everybody needs money. But guess what? With the world and the situation that's going on right now, with my neighborhood, I live in a great neighborhood, but I also know that there's a bus that comes by and delivers hot meals to a couple different families, because when they go to school, that's the meals that they count on. And when I heard that, it like literally like brought tears to my eyes, because I'm thinking about these young kids going to school, and that's the best time of their day. Number one, they know they're going to get fed. They know that they're going to be loved by their teachers, and they're going and they're getting that. And now with this situation and not a lot of people always being able to give kids everything that they need, I get it. They're a lot. And when it comes to not being able to feed them or have a lot of money, that was heartbreaking for me. So in this time, it was like, I don't need you to go and spend tons of money to give back. But whether it's $7 for one meal for a kid or feeding a family for the night or just something. And I think the beauty of this is just allowed for me to wake up with a little bit more motivation in the day. Like I was telling you, finding something to be motivated for. I get an opportunity 3 days a week, twice a day, to jump on a call with a team, tell them my story and things that are important to me in this game, as far as like the mental training and different scenarios. And then their job is to just go, and the coach will go and donate to that charity. And I feel so good at the end of the day, because I know that we're helping put food in kids' mouths, and I get to do the easy part, which is talk softball, you know?
Just a great job in itself. But
yeah.
Things that you've been talking with the girls and the teams on, I mean, has anything been drastically different from the high school level, you know, to the college level? Can you shed some light on that?
No, honestly, I kind of talk around the same thing. You know, I will obviously leave some stuff open for questions, and you'll get some of the high school girls that'll talk like recruiting and like different things like that. You know, when I talk with LSU softball, a lot of their questions stemmed around like work ethic and like motivation. And like, if you were a pitcher right now and you really didn't need to be ready until the upcoming year, like what would you do? And how I go about my business is different than someone that's 20 years old and can go balls to the wall every day with their bodies, you know? So but I mean, the beauty of it is that I'm just telling them what I wish I would have known, what I wish I would have done at 14, 15, 16
Yeah.
as far as the mental game, going over what I learned from Ken Ravizza with the Heads Up Baseball book. By far, someone that made the biggest impact on my life in this sport, to transition, not only just thinking I'm talented enough, but adding that mental game was the difference for me from being a good player to being able to be a great player, because talent gets you so far. And kids really think the talent gets you to where you need to go. And it's like, you're wrong.
So much
like
more.
it is. So I think it's cool for me to really express that, because you can hear something from your parents or your coach and not believe it. But guess what? I've lived it. I've been there. I've done it. I've played on every situation possible aside from playing over in Europe. And I know that the mental competitive edge is the difference between potentially a medal and no medal at an Olympics and a national championship and not one. So
yeah, really, really great points. And love what you're doing. And like I said, I kind of reached out to you on a whim and said, hey, I would love to have you on and, just speak about motivation, because I know you're so passionate about it, and it comes out, in so many great forms on all social media platforms. So I thank you for that. But we've had a few questions come in, and so I don't want to take up too much of the afternoon. But one question that came through was tips on overcoming a bad game. So you talk a lot about, being mentally tough and, keeping this composure. What kind of tips do you have? And this could really be for, any athlete in general.
Yeah, this is the beauty of sport. This is the hardest part for athletes, to close the chapter on a bad day, close the book on a bad day, because what I continue to keep saying is that to the teams is that 2009 Olympic or national championship run, when we played in that UMass regional and we lost game 1 on Sunday and I lost 7-1, was terrible, giving up a couple bombs, but I had only a 30-minute window to shut that off, to go back into game 2 where we ended up playing 15 innings. The hardest part is being able to not think about what just happened, right? It's like, oh my gosh, they roughed me up. They did this, they did that. Dude, the faster you're able to realize that I got to close that and I cannot think about that anymore, I have to solely focus on what my purpose is. And that is, for softball players, one pitch at a time. I have to take accountability as a pitcher to be present every single pitch. I can't think, wow, this girl's coming up. She had a home run on me last game. Ooh, I can't give her this. Yeah, you have to be smart about it, but the work that we put into our lives and in this sport is what we need to remember when stuff gets hard. So when you have a bad game, that's the beauty of sport. You are humbled to a T. And that really is what allows for you to sit back and go like, I've never made it and I probably never will. And I have to work harder. And at my age, at 33 now, like I know I'm never going to get where I want to be in this sport, because you're never going to be perfect. You're going to go and you're going to struggle. But the faster I can turn the page on it and say, when I wake up the next day, it's another opportunity for me to get better, work a little bit harder. Remember those feelings in your gut and in your heart when you were struggling, and start to learn how to deal with those. Okay, when those feelings come up again, how can I mentally not allow them to come in? Whether it's my focal point, whether it's remembering, the hard work. You're doing yourself, like I said a while ago, a disservice if you're continuing to let those emotions creep in and just ruin your next opportunity, because the sun's always going to come up again tomorrow and you're going to get a new chance. But clean slate every day, because nobody cares about what happened yesterday. No one cares. I won a national championship in 2009. No one cares about that. They care about, am I going to be someone that can help a team win a medal?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about the past,
All valid points for sure. Scott asked a really quick question. Did you send a lot of emails out, and how did you pick college, or did they pick you? So how did you ultimately end up at Washington? I mean, I know you hit on the fact that it was close and that was a big deciding factor, but I think he's wanting to know a little bit if anything else kind of went into that, deciding factor.
Yeah, I did send out emails, a lot of them. Top 20 schools, reached out to everyone that, I had an interest in going there. And I put forth the effort in letting them know it's not just because you're a top 10 school. It's because I legit was interested because of XYZ. You can't all of a sudden just say, I'm the best player, I deserve to go here because I'm the best. You got to think about these opportunities as, if I want to go to University of Washington, Heather's taking a chance on me, but she's also looking at this as inviting someone into her family for the next 4 to 5 years. And that's a harsh thing. If I'm going to have someone into my family, you better believe that I'm going and doing every single background type look on them, teammate, personal, all those social media stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's putting yourself out there, understanding that, yes, not everyone's going to love you, and that's okay. There's a lot of opportunities, whether it is D1, D2, D3, JUCO. But just continuing to understand that a closed door doesn't mean that this is done for you, because we've all worked so hard. The opportunity is there for college softball. And at the end of the day, you know, education is a huge piece in this puzzle, and softball is just a key to that. And not a lot of people get the opportunity to continue to keep playing when college is done. And that is sad. So it's really making sure you do your homework on what it is you're interested in for your future and finding a school that really best fits that, because at the end of the day, that's your number one. Softball is there, but your number one has to be setting yourself up for your future, for doing the right stuff and doing your homework with whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, we talk a lot about it being a 40-year decision, you know, not necessarily a 4-year decision.
Yeah.
It's a big one. But I'm curious, you know, for our seniors that are getting ready for college, looking back on the summer going into Washington, and you're young, is there anything that you would have done differently to prepare for freshman year? Or is there anything that, you know, really stood out to you that, you know, you wish you would have known kind of stepping on foot campus freshman year?
Yeah. I wish I would have had a little bit more understanding of the structure. And, you know, I was a young lady growing up, very lucky with a mom that handled a lot at home and cooked your meals and did your laundry and did everything that way. And a dad that would plan and do stuff and hold my hand and take me where I needed to go. And then when I got to college, it was like, no one's telling me what I need to do. No one's telling me that, I have these classes that I need to do, but also homework for every single class, and then tests and quizzes and labs and all these different things. So it's like my scheduling and understanding of like how that all works, I lost it. And I was almost barely eligible my first quarter. I think I got like a 2-2, because it was trying to learn how to not only get your butt up out of bed at 5:15 in the morning for 6 a.m. weights and then conditioning, and then you have school all day, and then practice after school, and then treatment, tutor, and you go home after dinner and have your homework. And it just got to this vicious cycle of like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could be tested to this limit, and no one's helping me. But as soon as I started struggling, Coach Tar realized that, pulled me aside. We put out a plan. She pretty much told me these are mandatory. And then that's when I started to learn, like, I just need to hold myself accountable more and really start to figure out what it is that like I'm struggling with, put more energy towards that, and ask for help. Everyone's there to help you, whether it's a tutor, whether it's a study buddy. They say you're dumb if you can't graduate as a student athlete, because the resources are endless, right? So I just think it's, being able to take ownership and say like, hey, I need help. Can somebody help me? I can't do this by myself. Everybody will help you if they can.
Yeah. 2 more quick questions that came through. Someone asked about, you know, accountability. You've talked about accountability and not being able to be with your teammates right now. You know, I think that really resonates with a lot of athletes that are probably listening. How are you and your teammates holding yourselves accountable? Or, you know, what does that kind of look like? You know, is it moved more digitally, or what is kind of your plan, you know, been put in place?
Yeah. I mean, we have mandatory calls every Monday night at 5 o'clock my time with our whole team, and different coaches will do things on it. So we'll do that every Monday. I mean, I stay connected to my people. Like I'm talking with Jen and Rafter and them every day, usually a text, and just checking in. How are you guys doing? And then, I mean, as far as the accountability piece, we have mandatory stuff we're supposed to be doing right now. And as far as your lifting, as far as your running, and I'll be damned if I'm the only one that's doing it, you know? So it's like, I don't have the ability to check in on what everyone's doing. But what I have learned throughout this process is that with my life and my family and how difficult it is, even though it's a road that I decided to go down, it allows for a deeper voice when it comes to if I feel like there's any doubt. So if there's any doubt as far as a teammate not putting in the work, or people aren't doing what they need to do,
you're having that tough conversation.
Mess with me. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, how bad do you want something? Like, I want to put an Olympic medal around my neck and know that I left no stone unturned. And I'm going to do that. And I've learned how to do that. So if there's somebody that I know that is not doing that, it's not fair to myself to potentially, like, I always put myself in the future and think, okay, if we're in an Olympic Games and this is the biggest damn game of our whole entire life, and this person or that person, or say if there was any doubt in that person and the accountability piece and they effed up and we lose that game because of that, to me, that's something that I'll remember. It's not that, oh man, I didn't step up when I needed to. It would be, why didn't I hold them to a higher standard? Because the game's going to challenge you. That situation can happen. And at the end of the day, that's how teams need to be run. You got to have, whether it's an older person or a vet or a captain or a freshman that comes in. Like I think about Dan Hartog with Minnesota coming in. Like she was pretty much like a vet. Her work ethic spoke for itself. So I think of those people being able to come in and make the impact and say, all you got to do is work hard. If you're not willing to work hard, why are you here? Don't waste my damn time. And I find it easier
stepping
for me
outside
to
your
do that.
comfort zone. Yeah, there's some that are really good at leading, some that aren't, you know, and that's what makes up a team, right? You got to pick each other up. But last question through, Marcy asked, what brought you to the next level as a pitcher? She's dying to know. So obviously from BC softball to the University of Washington, was there anything specific that you feel really kind of elevated your game?
I think, so there was a game in 2005 when we were playing Team USA in the World, I'm not sure it was called the World Cup of Softball back then, but remember they always have that big tournament in the summertime?
Yep.
And I was 18. It was the summer leading up to go into UW for me. It was the first time that I was with the senior team. And I was playing against Team USA and I pitched against it. And I remember the day before, we're up on those practice fields in Oklahoma City, and you know, we're talking, and Team Canada's never beat Team USA, right? Like it's never happened. So we're all sitting up there talking. I'm kind of new to this because I'm trying to figure it all out. And Coach Sipple is like talking to the group after the game, and she's like, "Yeah, so you know, we're not supposed to win tomorrow because we obviously never have." So she goes, "So we're gonna pitch Danielle," and I'm literally sitting there, and I'm just like, "Okay." Why?
Is this a joke?
Why does everyone always doubt? Like, that's like the worst thing you can do to a young lady is to tell them like, we're not supposed to win, so I'm going to start you. What? So in that moment, I feel like every single trait in my dad came out of just like, rah, like you're going to like tell me I can't do it. I will prove you and this whole entire world wrong. And we did. We ended up beating them 3-2. And that was a really big game for our team and country to do that. But I think for me at 18 years old, it really just allowed for me to say like, I can. You're gonna tell me I can't, but like, I always believe that I can. And I will go back and look at little clips of video from that, like the old short days, knee pads up, just
terrible looks for all, really bad.
All of it. But that game really stands out for, I think that just allowed me to realize I can compete at the next level and potentially go to an Olympics. I didn't even know that was possible at that time, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank you. You've had some really awesome points. I want to thank you just for being such an inspiration to everyone that's locked up in their house right now and, you know, needs a sense of motivation. I'm excited to continue to watch your journey, you know, over the next year, and I'm rooting for you. But
thank you.
Come and keep up everything, you know, with the Zoom meetings and everything. So I will direct people to your Instagram page for those. I know she's got a schedule so far, so things may get a little crazy, you know, over the next month, 2 months, whatever that looks like. But thank you again for everything, Danielle. Stay happy, stay safe, and I hope your little ones are not ruining the house right now.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know what I'm getting myself into when I go out of my room.
You never know. Well, thank you again. Have a good one.
Awesome.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.